This is the plaintiff, Daryl Vickers. He says he hired the defendant to install a specific braking system in his vintage 1972 Chevy Monte Carlo. And the guy pulled a switcheroo on him and installed another, cheaper brand. This guy out and out robbed him of the $4,000 he paid him. There's no way he's going to allow him to get away with it. And is suing here and now for the $4,000 he's owed. This is the defendant, James Matthews. He says the plaintiff couldn't afford the expensive braking system he wanted, so we told him about a cheaper alternative, and the guy agreed to have him install that one. He installed the brakes. The plaintiff came back once to have them adjusted and never complained about a thing. Now he's suing him for some strange reason he doesn't understand, and he thinks the judge will feel the same way today. He's accused of pulling a switcheroo.
All parties, please get your right hands.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case on the docket, the plaintiff says that he bought a very specific high-performance braking system from the defendant, but the guy pulled a switcheroo and gave him an inferior product, so he wants a refund. Now, the defendant says the plaintiff couldn't afford the more expensive brakes, so he offered him a cheaper alternative, which he agreed to. It's the case of them's the brakes.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome.
All right, Mr. Vickers, you're suing Mr. Matthews and his service shop for $4,000 that you say he must return to you because he pulled a switcheroo on you. Tell me what happened.
Back in 2020, I'm thinking maybe September of 2020, I visited Mr. Matthews' shop in Rochester, New York, and he and I had a discussion about my 1972 Chevy Monte Carlo. I told him I had had the vehicle for quite some time and I was ready to start rehabbing the vehicle. I bought the vehicle back to Mr. Matthews on September 9th, 2020, and he proceeded to make some repairs to the car. Probably midway through his repairs of the vehicle, he and I started having a discussion about me updating my current brake system to a disc brake system. I suggested to him that I would like to have a particular brand system, and I told him I would like to have Wildwood.
Okay.
Mr. Matthews and I talked about having the rotors, which would have been disc brake rotors, drilled and slotted disc brakes. We talked about what particular colored calipers that I wanted for the disc brake system. I told him I wanted red, and he said, okay, well, give me a few days because his shop was really busy and he would get back to me with an estimate.
And did he get back to you with an estimate?
Yes, he did. He got back to me with an estimate on the date of 10/22, I think.
And does
is the
the
date.
estimate say the brand that you are specifying?
Yes, if you look at the second item of evidence that I provided to you, he provides me a order quote, Chevy front brake kit red for $871.84. He has
Right. Where's
brake-
other than in someone's handwriting next to the words "look judge," where it says Willwood, who wrote that word Willwood upside down there?
Mr. Matthews wrote that word.
Okay. Mr. Matthews, is this your handwriting? Did you write that word?
It appears that it is my writing. It is what we're looking at, Your Honor, is not a quote. What this is a shopping cart that was formed on Jegg's High Performance mail order, and those are notes. This is not a quote. This is from Jegg's.
Is that
This
a
is not
different place?
Yeah, Jegg's is our supplier where we buy parts.
Okay.
And if you take a look at every single part on here, those are not Willwood part numbers.
No.
Those are all the right kit, the right stuff.
Right, but then why is it you write Willwood if you're going to argue to me that he never asked for Willwood?
This is not a quote, a written quote. This is a quote from our supplier to us.
Right, but
Okay.
you wrote, I know, but you have admitted that you wrote the word Willwood. That implies to me that you guys discussed the concept that it would be a certain
did.
brand. All right.
We did. Our
So,
initial conversation, the topic of manufacturer Willwood was our what Mr. Vickers wanted. He wanted Willwood brakes.
okay.
He had a budget of $4,000. He came to me and said that. So what we did is we looked at the cost of the Willwood product, and it was almost $4,000 for the product without labor.
Who's we? When you say we looked, who is
My
we?
son and I,
Okay.
my son Michael and I,
Okay.
he runs the company with me.
Okay.
And we looked at our cost on the products, and I went to Mr. Vicker. And I said, Mr. Vicker, $4,000 is not going to work. We either up the brake budget or Willwood is out of the question.
Okay.
That's why the quote that he showed you does not have Willwood part numbers on it. Those are the part numbers of the right stuff. That is the product that we did buy for this.
Okay. So why do you write the word Willwood?
Okay, so this is not a quote to him. This is my notes that I had conversations on the phone
Okay.
with him.
So
He wanted Willwood brakes. We're talking on the phone. I wrote it down.
Right.
And then I did shopping, and it was out of the budget.
okay.
So we went with a different.
All right. Is this the only quote he sees before the work is done?
This isn't a quote. Once again, that
Okay.
is,
Where do you give him a quote before the work is done?
yes. I have a deposit on December 8th, 2020.
Okay.
That is the receipt for the deposit. That's all. For
All
a
right.
full disc
So
brake conversion.
in here, it doesn't say Willwood, right, Mr.
Absolutely not.
Vickers?
Right.
So
Yeah, Mr. Vickers agreed to the other brand.
Mr. Vickers, in here it doesn't say Willwood, right?
No, Your Honor, it doesn't.
If
but
it
I
was
like to-
so much a part of your deal, why wouldn't you see to it that it says that?
Well, because first off,
Because he's saying that you agreed to the other brand and now you're just upset.
Mr. Matthews is not being truthful in what he just said to you, Your Honor.
Okay.
That's not how that went, and he knows that's not how it went.
Okay. So other than did to, did not, I have to look at the evidence to try to figure out who's telling me the truth as best that I can, because I wasn't present at your conversation. So when someone asks for a specific brand, it's usually on the invoice. He admits that you discussed Willwood, and he admits that's his handwriting. I didn't think he was going to admit that. He admits that's his handwriting. What he says is you two had a discussion and decided against it and that it would be a different brand. But I don't see anywhere where he's selling you the brand you want and making you pay for that brand versus a different brand. I don't see that anywhere. What went wrong? Because you paid the guy and took the car. So when did you get upset and decide to sue? What happened? What changed?
Well, first, I never got upset with Mr. Matthews. And secondly, everything that Mr. Matthews said was not true. Me and Mr. Matthews never spoke one time on the phone about the arrangements. Every conversation that we had was in person in his shop. And there was never a budget of $4,000. Mr. Matthews and I negotiated the price of $4,000 because I had spent a significant amount of money with Mr. Matthews in his shop. Okay, so at that time, he initially suggested $4,800. And I said to him, I said, well, Jim, I can't do 48. I can do 4,000. He came back later on the next day and said, well, Fahim, we can do $4,000. There was never a budget. He and I agreed.
Right,
So
and
there
what
was
he
never a
says
budget.
happened after the amount of $4,000 was agreed to. We can't do Willwood for that price. So
That is not true. How I discovered that it wasn't Wildwood is I came to pick the vehicle up. His shop closed at 4:30. I didn't get off of work until 5 o'clock. Jim and I spoke. Now, at this time, I don't know what brand brake system is on the car.
it sounds like from your testimony that you expected it to be, is it Wildwood or Willwood? What is it?
Wildwood.
Willwood.
I pronounce Wildwood.
All right, so it's tomato. All right, so you get there to pick up the car, and how do you find out it's not Willwood?
When I came to pick the vehicle up, his shop closed at 4:30. I didn't finish work until 5. Mr. Matthews and I had spoken that he was going to leave the vehicle in his parking lot. So when I get there to pick the vehicle up, I notice right away because I don't see red calipers. I see black calipers. So I can't call him because his shop is closed. So I called him the very next morning and I said, "Hey, Jim, is that Wildwood on the vehicle?" He says, "No, it's not Wildwood. You couldn't afford Wildwood." I said, "Well, what do you mean I couldn't afford Wildwood? We negotiated $4,000. You agreed to it." He says, "Well, I didn't do the ordering. My son did the ordering, and I don't know what the system was." I said, "Well, Jim, you need to find out what the system is because that's not what I paid for. I paid you for Wildwood. Your Honor, the brake system is an inferior brake system. You can buy that brake system from the auto parts store for probably $400-500. It's not a Wildwood system."
Well, what
Mr.
does a
Matthews,
Wildwood system cost?
well, the system, the estimate that I have is the quote that he provided me.
The quote that he provided you doesn't say that you are ordering Wildwood. He agrees with you that the shopping cart, when you're talking, he does write on it, well, because the subject comes up. But what he says happened is that the two of you discussed it and that you would have to pay more than the $4,000. Because when was the $4,000 agreed to? Before or after the Wildwood discussion comes up?
Yes, ma'am.
Like price first and discussion later? I mean, when does the amount of $4,000 get discussed? Because from your testimony, what you're saying is you discussed $4,000 first and then Wildwood later.
No. We did start discussing Willwood, and he quickly realized, and we quickly realized, that it wasn't in his budget of $4,000. He refused to up his budget, so I offered him an alternative.
Okay, so if he talks about Willwood from the beginning, why do you give him a budget that doesn't include Willwood?
He gave me the budget. I tried to
how
up
do you
his
come
budget.
up with four? Okay, but the budget.
He did.
But the budget has to come from somewhere. So when you say it'll be $4,800, are you using Willwood in your? Because that's what he asked for from the beginning.
I never gave him a number for Willwood. I quite simply told him it wasn't in the budget he allotted. He came to me and said, "I have $4,000 to invest in my braking system."
So
And
he
said,
just
"I'd like
comes
Willwood."
up with the budget for
Yes,
it
that's how he
without
did.
you giving him a quote?
Correct. He did that with all his work. He came to me with a budget
Did you
proposal.
ever go to him? Did you ever come to him and say it's $4,800, and then he says, "Well, what I have is $4," or anything like that?
No, because when I priced out on my shopping cart my quote for the Willwood product, my son, when he helped me price it out, the whole entire budget was $4,000 for parts alone for the Willwood cross-drilled and slotted with the red calipers. And so we were so far out of the ballpark, I gave him an alternative immediately, which he accepted.
This is a picture of what that we're looking at here that has just mule kicked him in his nuts. WT dope. That's
Okay, so Your Honor, this is a screenshot of the work that we performed, the cross-drilled and slotted rotors with the black calipers. And
why
I sent
black
him the
calipers? Didn't he ask for red?
Right, but okay, no, he agreed to black calipers, and that's on his receipt, which, okay,
Oh yeah,
if you
it
read
says
it,
black. Yeah.
this is his actual receipt for the work we performed. And then the pictures, he was very happy. We have 11 pictures that we sent him on September, excuse me, I keep saying September, I apologize. This is every corner of the wheel with multiple views. March.
Yeah, I know.
Of
That
21.
doesn't, I mean, he doesn't know what the Willwood would look like. He doesn't, so this doesn't necessarily prove he knew you weren't using Willwood. As it turns out, Willwood has the word Willwood on it, right?
It sure
Exactly.
does.
Yeah.
And it's written right on the caliper.
Your Honor, can I
Do
say
you
something,
know,
please?
Mr. Vickers, how did you know about the Willwood brand, Mr. Vickers?
Well, in the muscle car world, Willwood is a very popular brand when it comes to disc brake systems.
Does Willwood always have the word Willwood on it?
To my knowledge, yes.
Okay, so when you get these texts from someone, is this from you, Mr. Matthews?
Yes, most likely, or one of my technicians,
Okay,
but it
when
is
you
from our
see
company.
that, how come you don't say, "Whoa, what's going on? That's not the right disc
Well,
brake"?
first off, those pictures don't look familiar to me.
You didn't write the words, "Oh wow, you guys just mule kicked me in my nuts." Does that sound like you?
I don't recognize those pictures.
Are these your wheels? Is that your phone number?
That's not my phone number, no.
That is his number. It's got to be.
Well, when you say it's got to be, who tells you it is? Because you just submitted this into evidence quite recently. So
Okay, yes.
do you have that number written on any document that you can introduce to court?
Yeah, right here, my actual cell phone, the actual where he got it from, where we got it from.
Call that number right now.
All right, I'll call that number right now. Have my son helping me, my assistant.
I've never met his son a day in my life, Your Honor.
The number you dialed is not a working number. Please check the number and dial
But
again.
it was a working number March 12th of 2021 because someone responded. So let's look at the work
that
order.
phone number is on his official receipt. It's his number. Look at the receipts I gave you.
Yes, sirree, I'm looking. All right. Mr. Vickers, I showed you this text and you're like, that was never my number. Then it turns out that that was your number and that was untruthful. People know what their phone number is. He has a document with the phone number, your phone number on it with your signature. So we know, you tell me that's not how I talk, but we know now that that cannot be true because that's your phone number and that was your answer to it. And it's clear that this isn't Willwood, Wildwood, because the name isn't splattered across the disc break. So it sounds like it was just fine with you then. I am finding, Mr. Vickers, that you have not sustained your burden of proof to show me that, in fact, you have been deceived by them for many reasons. One is this picture. Two is that the paperwork you have never guarantees to you that it'll be the specific brand you're saying. Three is the fact that that brand would have eaten up the whole amount that we're talking about. I'm finding in favor of the defense in this case.
So the plaintiff fails to convince the judge he deserves to receive $4,000 from the defendant. Mr. Vickers, what do you think about what the judge just decided?
I'm kind of disappointed.
What's the matter with the brake system you have? Isn't it okay, or you just don't think it looks flashy enough?
Well, it's not a Wildwood. I mean, we agreed to Wildwood. I didn't get Wildwood. He gave me right stuff. But if the judge feels as though that I didn't have a case here, I can live with it.
Well, bottom line is the judge does not think you've proved your case, and you're going to live with it. You're going to have to live with it. You have no other choice, unfortunately. So you don't get $4,000. Let's see what Mr. Matthews has to say about that. Mr. Matthews, you feel vindicated now? You feel better?
Yes, I do, Your Honor, because the truth comes out in the end always. I know I called you Your Honor. I'm sorry. I'm a little nervous.
Yeah, that's it. You can call me Your Honor. That's all right with me. By the way, you said you've done a lot of work with this guy before. Is that right? A number of other things on this car?
We've done quite a bit of work for Mr. Vickers. He's had a lot of work done here, and he's always been incredibly pleased because our work is quite perfect.
So do you think you will continue to do work for him, or will this end your relationship with him? Any idea?
Unfortunately, this will certainly end because truth is the way it's got to be. Truth.
Okay. Well, listen, very good. You have prevailed, and you're off the hook. You don't have to give him any $4,000. Okay? Congratulations.
Another good example, when you go to an auto repair shop, really, or any place else, be as specific as you can in writing. Write down precisely what you expect, and you will be protected in court.
Sometimes wealthy pet owners leave large amounts of money for the care of their pets in their will. If a rich dog bites me, can I sue it?
That's a very interesting question because, yeah, there are some rich pets out there. You know, you read the stuff in the newspapers. I think it was Leona Helmsley left her Maltese, little Maltese named Trouble, like $2 million or $6 million or something, and then left just a pittance for a couple of the grandkids. The dog got way more than the grandkids. So people do that kind of thing every now and then. They'll leave millions for the pet in trust and another $1 million for the caretaker of the pet for the next 30 years and things like that. But here's the problem. The law in all 50 states still considers pets personal property. Right, they're property. You can't serve a subpoena on a dog. You can't get a lawyer for a dog. You can't get damages from a dog in a jury trial or in a bench trial from a judge. No one is going to award damages against an animal. But gosh, if they could, some people could get really rich if they get bitten by Trouble, right? That little Maltese.